Chapter 1, Nouns and Articles, on page 22 and following in your textbook. It's also in the e-book, which you can access online. In this lesson, we will discuss nouns and articles. That includes whether a noun is masculine or feminine, and it also includes how to make nouns singular and plural. Okay, we're going to start today by talking about the gender of nouns. Now, in English, nouns don't have gender. They're not masculine or feminine. But in Spanish, nouns are either masculine or feminine. As an example, the word for book, libro, is masculine. The word for table, mesa, is feminine. Now, to help figure out, if you don't know already, what the gender of a noun is, you can look at the articles. We have two sets of articles here. We have definite articles. Those are the word for the. And we have indefinite articles. And those mean a or some. So when I say the book, I have to have a masculine article that means the. That's what L is. It means the, but it's masculine. It's also singular. It's just one book. So if I say the book, el libro, the book, the definite article the. If I want to say the books, I have to use a different definite article, los. To say the books, it's los libros. I have to have a plural noun, libros, like books is plural in English, but I also have to have a plural word for the. And in this case, that's los libros. Masculine plural to go with the masculine plural noun, books or libros. If I want to say the table, I have to use the feminine word for the, la. So to say the table, I have to say la mesa. To say the tables, I have to say las mesas. Notice that the noun is plural, it has an S, but also the word for the is plural. This definite article is feminine and plural to match the noun mesas, which is feminine and plural. So these are the four definite articles. They all mean the. El libro, the book. Los libros, the books. La mesa, the table. Las mesas, the tables. There are also indefinite articles. These definite articles all mean the indefinite articles mean a or some. So we're back to the same two words. Un libro is a book. Una mesa, feminine word for a or one. Una mesa, a table. But to say some books, I have to say unos mesas. Unos is the plural of un. This is masculine singular to go with the masculine singular word book or libro. This is masculine plural to go with the plural word for book. Books are libros. Unos libros is some books. Unas mesas with an A is some tables. So there are also four indefinite articles to go with the four definite articles. Un libro, a book. Unos libros, some books. Una mesa, a table. Unas mesas, some tables. So we have definite articles and indefinite articles. These are all the, and these are all either a or some if they're plural. Okay, we just discussed the gender of nouns, whether they're masculine or feminine, and the definite and indefinite articles. Now we're going to look a little bit more closely at how to make nouns singular and plural, and look at some cases of different words and the way they show gender. For example, the word for friend is amigo. That's masculine singular. See, it has an O at the end. O is usually the masculine ending. And the word for friend, a female friend, would be amiga with an A at the end. So male friend, a female friend. The male friend, the female friend. And in this case, you just change the letter at the end, either O or A, to change the gender. And to make it plural, since both of those would end in a vowel, I would just add an S. Los amigos would be the friends, or male friends, and las amigas would be the female friends. Now the plural is a little bit tricky because los amigos definitely has some males in there, but there could also be some females in the friends, the plural friends. But las amigas is definitely the female friends. Now, the next thing we need to look at is words that don't just change the letter at the end. For example, the word for teacher, el profesor. Notice it ends in the consonant R. That's the masculine for the professor or teacher. But the female teacher is la profesora. We add the A at the end, even though that didn't have an O in the masculine. So, el profesor, the male teacher, la profesora, the female teacher. Now here's the first word we've come up on that ends in a consonant. So how do you make a word plural if it ends in a consonant? So let's look at this. Los profesores. Notice it's got an es on the end. Since it ends in the consonant R, you add es to make it plural. The other word, la profesora, ends in a vowel, so you just add an s to make it plural. Okay, so the main thing that we've learned here is that if a noun ends in a consonant, to make it plural, you have to add an es. If it ends in a vowel, to make it plural, you just have to add an s. But we've also discussed words that just have vowels on the end to change the gender, and some words that have the vowel on the end for the female, but not for the male. And the way that they express their singularity and plurality is a little different. Es again, if it ends in a consonant, and you add the s if it ends in a vowel. Okay, this time we're discussing masculinity and femininity of nouns, whether a noun is masculine or feminine. Some words look the same for both. For example, el estudiante is the male student, and la estudiante is the female student. The word estudiante is the same for both. There are a few other words that do this, but they're not that common. So el estudiante, the male student, la estudiante, the female student. Now the natural question arises, if there's not an article there, how do I know if something is male or female? And here are a couple of clues. First, if a word ends in AD, like diversidad, especialidad, ciudad, or libertad, the word for liberty, if it ends in an AD, it's probably feminine. Or if it ends in an ION, it's probably feminine also. For example, nación would be la nación, exploración, la exploración, and so forth. Words that end in ION are generally feminine. Either an AD or an ION is generally a feminine noun. Contrary to that, words that end in EMA are usually masculine. Even though they end in an A, which is usually a female ending, these words are usually masculine. For example, the word problem. Problema is el problema, el tema, the theme. And there are other words, not that many, but generally speaking, words that end in EMA are masculine. Okay, now in this unit, we're going to discuss some nouns that have slightly irregular plural forms, or plural forms that you might not expect. For example, the word for pencil, el lápiz. Notice it ends in a Z. To make a word that ends in a Z, which is a consonant plural, you do add an ES like we've learned to do, but you also have to change that Z to a C. So instead of los lápices, it's los lápices. Notice that the Z's are usually pronounced like a double S anyway, so when you change that to a C, and it's followed by that E, it's going to have an S sound, so it's close to the normal pronunciation of the Z. Los lápices. This is also true of the word for light, la luz, L-U-Z. Las luces, L-U-C-E-S, for the lights. The word for fish, pez, los peces, L-O-S-P-E-C-E-S, plural of the fish heads. Now, another thing we're going to look at is some words that end in the I-O-N. Notice this accent when it's singular, la nación. And that's because words that end in anything but an L, R, or D normally have the accent on the next to the last syllable. So if it doesn't end in an L, an R, or a D, and the accent falls on that last syllable, you have to put an accent there, like with la nación. Most of the words that end in I-O-N have that accent there, and they are ion something, especialización, nación, standardización, and so forth. So anyway, the natural, if it doesn't end in L, R, or D, is for the emphasis to fall on the next to the last syllable. So when these nouns are plural, they then end in an S, and since that's not an L, an R, or a D, the emphasis naturally falls on the next to the last syllable. So lo and behold, it doesn't need an accent there to be las naciones, because that's where the accent would normally fall if it didn't end in an L, an R, or a D. Las naciones. So when it's singular, it has to have the accent. But when it's plural, it doesn't. So in this unit, we have discussed the gender of nouns, definite and indefinite articles, and how to make nouns singular and plural. There's one final part of the lesson that's mentioned in the book, that I did want to discuss. And that is, if I want to refer to a teacher and I'm not addressing that person, or any person, it had to be a teacher, if I'm referring to that person instead of addressing them, I would say el profesor Rodriguez or la señora Gomez. For example, I might say Señora Gomez is very smart. La señora Gomez es muy inteligente. But if I'm addressing that person, talking directly to them, for example, if I wanted to say, Mrs. Gomez, you're very smart, I would say, Señora Gomez, eres muy inteligente. I wouldn't say, La Señora Gomez, because I'm addressing her individually. But if I'm talking to someone else about her, then I would use a definite article. So that concludes this lesson.